Hi, and welcome to the Fit Life with Leonard. This is Leonard Scriven with Da Vinci Life Coaching and PushPointe Indoor Cycle and Fitness. In this week's episode of the Fit Life, we're going to talk about a subject that many of us struggle with, including me, and that is emotional eating. Emotional eating led to a 75-pound weight gain for me, and until I learned how to deal with my emotions better and put food in its proper place and have a much better perspective with food, it is something that I really struggled with. I would use it to feel better. I would use it to cope with stresses. I would use it to cope with anger. I use food to cope with so many different things. So let's jump right into it. I have some notes today that I want to refer to. So if you see me looking down occasionally, that's what I'm doing. And because I want to make sure that I don't miss anything, because it is such an important topic and an important subject. So with emotional eating, one of the ways that you know that you're emotionally eating is that you are coming from a place where you are feeling bad and you're looking for answers. You're really looking for something to help deal with the emotions that you're feeling right then. And some of the characteristics of emotional eating involve eating or hunger that comes on suddenly. And it's not hunger that is kind of a gradual process that just happens naturally as our bodies start wanting to be fed again. It's a hunger that comes on suddenly, often in response to an emotional or stressful situation. A second clue that you're dealing with emotional eating is that emotional hunger deals specifically with specific foods. You're craving a very, very specific food. That's one of the ways that you know that it's coming from an emotional place as opposed to a place of wholeness. Typically, it is foods that are high in salt, high in sugar, and these foods do have a physiological impact on our bodies that will, in the short term, help us feel better. But we all know what that cycle is that typically with emotional eating, because we aren't under control, we make bad choices about what we're going to eat. We eat too much of it, and this leads to this cycle. At least for me, it led to this cycle where I was eating because I felt bad, and I felt bad because I was eating, and there was just this loop that went downhill. Another way that you can know if you are caught up in emotional eating is that it's very mindless. You aren't really eating and being aware of what you're putting into your body. You're just eating. And it's almost the same as tapping your fingers, or for some people, may scratch their heads or have other emotional response. And so it's very mindless eating. It's that eating where you start off with a bag of chips, and all of a sudden you reach down into the bag and you realize that there aren't any left, and you really didn't even taste what you were eating. And another trigger or another point with emotional eating is that it's eating that isn't satisfied when you're full. We eat way beyond being full, right? And we eat to the point where we're actually stuffed. And that's how we know that if we are caught up in an episode of emotional eating, is that we're just eating, not eating mindfully, and eating to the point where we eat beyond hunger. And lastly, emotional eating leads to feelings of shame, regret, and guilt because we did it from a place of hurt and of lack. And when we engage in that, what ends up happening in the end is that we just end up feeling worse about ourselves than in what we even started. So now we've taken the issue that brought us to this place, that brought us to the place of emotional eating. And on top of that, we've compounded it with feeling bad about ourselves, putting ourselves down, feeling like we can't really cope with that. So one of the keys and the point to starting to figure out how to deal with emotional eating, number one, is identifying what your triggers are. If it's stress, a lot of people deal with stressful situations by turning to food as opposed to turning to other more mindful habits like breathing, going for a walk, stopping, journaling, that type of thing. Sometimes emotional eating can come from stuffing emotions. So it may not come right at that moment whenever you're dealing with it, but because you are ruminating on those thoughts and you're thinking about things, and we don't want to deal with the emotion, we don't want to cry, we don't want to feel bad, we end up just kind of stuffing our emotions and getting to the place where it just comes out almost seemingly out of nowhere, where we just find ourselves binging on ice cream or cookies or cake, or we'll go to a restaurant and we'll order way more food than we need to eat. And it really didn't come from a place like at the moment we didn't feel like we were feeling bad at that moment, but it really comes from not dealing with the emotions that we were feeling maybe a day or a week before, or even a few hours before, of not really dealing with the emotions. And there's a point, it's okay to cry. Crying helps us release the emotion. So it's okay to do that to help you feel better. A lot of times emotional eating can come out of boredom or having feelings of emptiness. So if you're bored or if you're not really satisfied with life, we will often turn to food. And it comes from childhood habits. I grew up in a house where the mantra was to eat everything that was on your plate. So I literally feel bad if I leave food on my plate. And it doesn't really matter how much food. If I put too much food on the plate to begin with, I will feel bad because I've left something on a plate, and that's something that was just ingrained in me. You know, that whole thing where there's starving children somewhere in the world, so you need to eat everything that's put in front of you. But reality, that's not a good way to approach eating, and it's not a good way to teach our kids how to eat. We get a small portion initially, eat that, check in, see how we're feeling, and then go back for more if we would like more, or whatever the case is. That is a much better approach than just having this arbitrary rule of saying, if it's in front of you, eat it. And also, lastly, social influences. So we know our friends are very important, and who we pick to hang out with will influence us. So we all have those friends that are like, oh, go ahead, it's fine, just eat it, it's okay, it's not any big deal. Or we'll have those friends like, it's okay just to take a break on the diet. And we also have those friends that are very supportive and will try to help us live a healthy lifestyle, or try to help us through whatever the emotion is. And so we have that range. And so those social influences can have a big effect on our choices and on our emotional eating. So if you're feeling very emotional and you're dealing with emotional eating, don't hang out with that friend that's going to encourage you to eat too much. And if you do find yourself in that situation, try to be the one to step up, to find some alternatives to food, like going for a walk, like taking some meditative breaths, like going to a yoga class, or even just sitting and talking and going to a movie, or just having conversation. Anything to do, or anything that you can do to help process whatever it is that you're going through, aside from turning from food. So here are some tips for you that will help you with emotional eating if you find yourself on the verge of really falling into it and being at the moment. One of the key tricks for me that I've used is to take 5. So you literally will take 5 minutes before you dive into whatever it is that you're going to dive into, and breathe, meditate, think about what is going on with you in those 5 minutes. And when I say meditate, I don't necessarily mean, it's more in that time, in that 5 minutes, more of a contemplation of what am I feeling? What is going on with me right now? Why is it that I'm turning to this food that I don't want, that I know is going to end up making me feel bad? Is it really going to satisfy what is going on with me right in this moment? Take 5 minutes to do that and figure out what's happening. And while you're doing that, take some time out to journal. And we don't have to have a formal notebook. You can have just a scrap piece of paper, and take the time out to write down what it is that you're feeling and what it is that you're going through at the time. Literally, what are you experiencing at that moment? And when you're able to step back and look and see what it is you're dealing with in that moment, you're also able to make better decisions about what you want to do next. And a lot of times people will say, well, I don't want to do that, I don't have time for do that. But we have time to go to a store, buy food, sit down and eat it, or we have time to walk into our pantry and pull out the kids' cookies and sit down and eat those. That same time that you are taking to put food into your mouth could be time that you could take to figure out what it is exactly that is going on that is going on with you. And so once you're able to identify what is going on with you, what you're feeling in that moment, you're better able to, like I said, you're better able to make a decision about what you want to do next and better ways to cope. So again, I've mentioned it quite a few times during the last 10 minutes. Breathing, right? Breathing will connect you with yourself. Breathing will allow you to make better decisions. It's breathe in for a 4 count. Breathe out. Breathe in and out. During that time, that breathing will signal your body, literally give you a signal, your body letting you know that you are okay, that you don't have to respond to this flight or flight thing that's going on with you right then, and that you can actually slow down. Journaling, taking time down to write down what you're experiencing in that moment, not whatever the situation is. So you aren't journaling about the situation, about the fight or the argument with your friend or your spouse, or writing down how wrong someone is or anything. You're writing down what you're feeling right at that moment. So I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling frustrated. I see that I want to go and hurt myself with this food. I see that right now I'm craving this. I'm having a craving for ice cream. I'm having a craving for cookies. I want to go and get a burger and fries. This is how I'm feeling right now. I'm not judging myself about this, but this is what I'm feeling right now. And to take the time out to write those feelings down and figure out and take the time to look and figure out some better feeling thoughts. So it wouldn't just be, oh, I'm feeling angry right now. I'm feeling angry right now, but I know that anger is going to dispel itself over time. I'm feeling frustrated right now, but I do have this happy thing in my life. When I think about my kids, it makes me smile. I'm feeling all kinds of ways right now, but I know that I'm taking this time right now to do something better for myself. So write down what you're feeling and write down and journal a better feeling thought. If you go through that exercise and you get in the habit of doing that, it'll put you in a position where you can make a decision about what you're going to do as opposed to dealing with this emotional trigger and this emotional response. Give this a try. It works. It works for me. It does take some mindfulness. It does take that moment where you have to stop. And you have to stop and you have to take a time out to take care of yourself. But the more you do it, the more you practice, the better you'll get at it. And one day you will find yourself not turning to food, but actually turning to meditation, turning to prayer, turning to contemplation, turning to journaling to help you deal with the emotional things that are going on. And from there, the sky is the limit. You'll find yourself in a much better place, much better physically, much better emotionally, much better spiritually, and much better mentally. So this has been The Fit Life with Leonard. I hope this has been helpful. I would love to do a coaching session with you. If one-on-one coaching, if you think one-on-one coaching would be beneficial, can actually go through some more of the details of how to deal with emotional eating or how to better cope with stress and emotions, and feel free to drop me an email at info@pushpointe.com. That's info@pushpointe.com. If you're in the Charlotte, North Carolina, Fort Mill, South Carolina area, feel free to stop by the studio, get in the workout, and I will see you next time. Have a great one.